Hey guys, I'm Richard Beck, and today I'm about to bring you another DIY project. Be a viable product, it has to fit into a large flat rate box so that I can ship it all over the United States for a low cost. If I can't ship it at a low cost, I can't sell it to you at a good price, which means you won't buy it, and we're all wasting our time. So that's why this base is broken in two. Now, the downside, since this is a prototype, clearly there's a problem. There's only holes for the casters in one corner. Oops. This is why I prototype everything first. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna lay this piece on top of that piece. And for this one, I'm gonna transfer those holes and we'll move on. This is part of the prototyping process, finding all of your errors. Just like all of the other BECK'S Armory products, this is going to be all about ease of assembly, right? Nothing that you buy from BECK'S Armory requires you to be a professional fabricator. And typically, I use interlocking structures with tabs and slots to gain strength instead of just taking the lazy route and using super thick material. Now, why do I do that? Here's the thing. Most DIY guys have a low power welder in their shop. Most of you guys have a 140 amp welder that you plug in to, a normal wall socket. So those welders, when it comes to welding anything more than 3/16, they suck. I don't want to offend you, but they just don't have enough ass unless you're going to preheat the material if you want to weld properly. So is what I do. I use geometric shapes and finite element analysis and advanced software to make sure that you get extremely robust, rigid products using 3/16 thick material. So it's going to be super rigid, super easy to build because the tab and slot, and anybody can weld it because it's not 1/2 inch plate, 3/8 plate. So some areas I do use thick plate, but only where I have to use it. Everywhere else, I rely on interlocking structures, tabs, slots, and geometry. You've got these flat corners here, so you line those up, and you're good. Now, you are gonna take this structure here. These tabs are gonna be down, so lock those together. And lock this one in there. Take this one. I've never done this before, but I did it in CAD, so look at that. So that's the base. All right, now all these lock together, so you don't have to worry about it being wrong. It can't be wrong. It only goes together one way. All right, so now you're gonna take these guys right here, these side pieces. Now you're gonna take the front and back. All right, there you go. So now you basically have a 5-inch square tube, big gussets on the bottom. This thing is gonna be rock solid. Also, I've got keyways here, so you can drop a carriage bolt in from the outside. It drops down into this spot, and you can attach anything. So even after this is all welded together and assembled, you don't have to drill and tap if you want to attach things to the side. You simply pop a carriage bolt in here, and it drops down into the slot, and you can attach accessories to the side. Now, these holes here, these are where you're going to bolt through into the telescoping portion. The telescoping portion allows you to adjust the height of this overall pedestal. If you're a 6-foot guy, you don't want your grinder like way down here. And if you're a short guy like me, 5'9", you don't want your grinder all the way up here. We're gonna go ahead and we are gonna weld this thing up. First thing you're gonna do is grab your 2 base plates. You're gonna line them up so the tabs, see how these like flare out a little bit here? Those are gonna be away from each other. Those are the kickouts for the casters. So these edges, they'll line up flush with each other. So once those are flush with each other, you can go ahead and throw maybe 2 tacks just so it won't move. Don't hit it so hard that it pulls the ends up. If you have a welding tape like this, you can clamp it down, but you don't have to as long as you don't get carried away with the tacks. Also, don't put your tack right in line where other pieces are gonna have to go down. Just keep them like kind of like generally in the middle. Now, this is going to be covered up with concrete, so it doesn't matter what they look like. I just put those there so it won't move on me if I bump it like that. So, now, you grab your side pieces, place those in there, and because of the interlocking tabs, you're gaining strength here, even if you suck at welding. So don't worry. The design is what makes this strong, not your skills. Okay, so I pop the end plate on, and then I pop this other end plate on. So now, with these I'm just gonna hang on to this corner. I forgot to turn the gas on. Okay. Take my magnet, put it on this side. When I do a project like this, I just tack everything first. After it's all tacked, I'll come back and fully weld the whole thing, always alternating from end to end, corner to corner. That way I spread my heat around and I don't twist anything because of overheating. All right. So this base is all tacked up now. We're going to go ahead and put the lower part of the telescoping base in here. So you can start by just assembling this. There are tabs on the bottom of this that go into the base, but you don't have to insert those right off the bat. Sometimes it's easiest just to insert the side here. And I'm inserting the front. Grabbing the other side. Insert that together. Now I'm going to slide this over and drop it into the slots. There you go. So this is the center section. We're going to tack it into place, and then we can move on to the rest. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to tack up here where it's nice and easy. And don't worry, this won't, it can't really move much because the tab in the slot and it's laser cut. So it's pretty much, as long as you don't have a big gap here, actually this won't let you have a big gap here. So all this stuff holds itself together. All of these tabs and slots self-align this product, making it really easy to weld up. Also, don't put any welds on the inside, okay? There's a telescoping assembly that is gonna move up and down inside. So do not weld the insides. I have a lip hanging over for you to weld back here. Also, the tabs don't come all the way to the face. So if you want, you can weld here, and you could even grind them flush and you would still have weld there after you ground it off. So I specifically did not make the tabs come all the way through. So I'm gonna just tack over here. take your nuts, put them in the steel. So you just drop them in there and then tack those into position. Now, these nuts can't get pulled through, so you're not having to weld all the way around. You just don't want them to fall out, right? So these nuts are gonna work even if you don't weld them completely. You just need some good tacks, and if you overheat the nut, the threads will get distorted inside and they won't work. So don't overheat these. Just, you know, a little weld on 2 sides is gonna be plenty, because the nut is on the back side of a round hole. It cannot pull through. Those are in, they're flush on the back side. Let's do the next one. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm gonna weld these all together. Now it's very important that the nuts that you just welded into that plate are on the inside of the tube. If those nuts are on the outside and they're protruding out, this assembly will not fit inside of the other assembly. Now, if they're protruding out a little bit, you can just hit them with an angle grinder or a file, and that's really gonna help you get that to fit inside the other part. There should be clearance, so they don't have to be perfect, but you want to try to keep those nuts flat and perpendicular when you weld them. So also, you don't want to put any weld on the faces of the plates with nuts. You'll notice the nut plates overhang the other 2 plates, and that overhang exists so that you can put weld back there and not have anything to grind off. Now, the tabs on the front side don't actually go all the way through the plate, so you could weld in those tabs, but then you would have to grind it off if you weld in the tabs here, because it would have to be flush to fit inside the other part. So I recommend that you weld on the back side of the overhangs. That's what the overhangs are for, and then you don't have to grind anything off after that. So that's what I'm doing here. At this point, I'm just tacking everything in place. I'm gonna come back and stitch weld the entire assembly. By stitch weld is what I mean is I'm gonna weld an inch, skip an inch, weld an inch, skip an inch, and do that to the entire assembly. All right, so now that you have the base and you have the top, you're gonna test fit them to make sure they fit before you weld this whole thing complete. So this is the highest position, and then this will lower it down. The lowest position, well, I guess the lowest position would be no bolts at all, which would be very low. And I'll put dimensions of this, you know, on the website, so you'll know its limits before you buy. So that's that. Yeah, you just bolt it and rock solid. I'm gonna go ahead and weld this thing fully complete, put a grinder on it, and we'll test it out. All right, at this point, all I'm doing is I'm mixing up the waterproof base coat. This is basically waterproof concrete. It costs about $10 a bag. I picked it up at Menards. Some guys are using bed liner. Just some people, you know, they just want to make sure that, you know, the concrete doesn't absorb moisture and then rust in between the concrete and the paint. But I did use Rust-Oleum rust inhibiting primer with a nice strong enamel with lots of coats. So I'm not really worried. This is 3/16 steel, so I mean, 50 years of rust is not going to be enough to compromise the strength of this. So I'm just filling it up, and then I shake it back and forth a little bit, and that vibration levels off the concrete. Always wear a mask when you deal with this stuff. I have no idea what's going to be in the concrete you choose to use. So just protect your lungs. You only get one set. So there you go. I just level it off, and then I primed it, painted it. This is the final product. So hope you guys like this. If you want to pick one of these up, swing over to BECK'sArmory.com. These are on the website. I will leave a link to the build kit in the description of this video. Also in the description of this video are some other helpful links to some Amazon products that I really like. If you purchase those by using the links, that does help out the channel, and it helps me make more videos like this in the future. Thanks guys for watching. I'd appreciate you. See you next time.